We live in a time when attention is under siege. Every day, without even realizing it, we wake up and enter a battlefield, a war for our minds. From the moment your phone lights up with a notification to the last scroll before bed, your focus is being pulled in dozens of directions. It's not just about entertainment or convenience anymore, it's about survival in the attention economy. Apps, platforms, media, they are all designed to hijack your awareness, to keep you scrolling, clicking, reacting. And in that process, something vital is slipping away, your ability to be fully present with your life. But this isn't just a story of loss, it's a call to reclaim something powerful. Because focus isn't gone forever. It hasn't disappeared. It's just been buried under the noise, neglected in a culture that rewards urgency over depth and stimulation over clarity. And the good news is this: focus is a skill. Mindfulness is a practice. You can train your attention. You can strengthen your awareness. You can take back control. Imagine living each day with clear intention instead of constant reaction. Imagine being able to work without drifting off into a sea of distractions. Imagine actually listening when someone speaks to you, really listening without your mind racing ahead or splitting off into 5 directions. That's the life you can build through focus and mindfulness. But let's be clear, this isn't about perfection. It's not about becoming some hyper-disciplined machine who never checks their phone or never gets distracted. You're human. You live in the real world, and the real world is noisy. What this is about is learning to anchor yourself, to create moments of stillness in chaos, to choose depth in a culture that thrives on surface, to remember that your attention is yours, and it's time to start treating it that way. This audiobook is your guide to doing just that. Over the next chapters, we'll explore what's truly behind distraction, both the external systems and the internal patterns that pull you away from the present. We'll uncover what mindfulness really means, not as a trend or quick fix, but as a powerful tool for clarity and calm. And we'll dive into habits, environments, and systems that can help you focus more deeply, not just for productivity, but for peace, for growth, and for the ability to live your life fully. So if you've ever felt like your mind is scattered, your days are slipping through your fingers, or your energy is always stretched too thin, know this: it doesn't have to stay that way. You can learn to focus. You can train your mind. You can return to yourself. Let's begin the journey, one moment, one breath, one intentional choice at a time. Chapter 1. Why focus is your greatest asset in the 21st century. If you had to choose one skill to develop in today's fast-paced, hyper-connected world, it wouldn't be speed. It wouldn't be multitasking. It wouldn't even be intelligence. It would be focus. Focus is the ability to direct your attention consciously and consistently toward what matters most. It sounds simple, but in practice, it's become one of the rarest and most valuable capabilities a person can develop. Not because people lack the desire to focus, but because the modern world is specifically designed to erode it. We now live in what psychologists call an attention economy. Tech companies, advertisers, media platforms, they all want one thing from you: your focus, your attention. That's what keeps their business models alive. That's what generates their revenue. Every second you spend watching, scrolling, clicking, or reacting translates to data, influence, and income for them. And in this game, your mind is the product. That's why cultivating focus is more than a personal development goal. It's a form of resistance. It's an act of reclaiming your agency in a world trying to steal it. When you control your attention, you control your time. When you control your time, you control your results. And when you control your results, you start to control the direction of your life. Let's get one thing straight. Focus is not about forcing yourself to stare at a screen for hours. It's not about becoming robotic or rigid. It's about intentionality. It's about aligning your energy with your priorities and making sure your most limited resource, your attention, is being invested where it actually matters. Think about this. What would change in your life if you could focus fully for just 2 hours a day? Not 8, just 2. 2 hours without distraction, without mindless switching between tabs, without the constant ping of incoming messages. 2 hours of deep, meaningful work. Over the course of a week, that's 10 hours. Over a year, that's 500 hours. That's the time it takes to write a book, build a business, learn a language, or reshape your life. But most people never tap into that power because their focus is fragmented. They're constantly jumping from one thing to the next, pulled by urgency, novelty, and noise. The result? Shallow output, wasted time, mental exhaustion, and a deep sense of dissatisfaction, as if they were busy all day but somehow got nothing important done. Here's the harsh truth. Busyness is not a badge of honor. Multitasking is not a superpower. And being constantly available does not make you more valuable. These are illusions, and they are costing you more than you realize. The real value comes from depth, from being able to give your full presence to the task in front of you, from being able to think clearly, work creatively, and connect meaningfully because your mind isn't scattered, it's steady. Let's take a moment to consider how this plays out in different areas of life. In your career, the ability to focus deeply is what separates high performers from average workers. Talent may give you an edge, but sustained, undistracted effort is what creates mastery. Whether you're solving complex problems, leading a team, or building a vision, focus is what allows you to do the work that actually matters. In your relationships, focus becomes presence. When you listen without checking your phone, when you hold space for someone without mentally checking out, when you share a moment without rushing to the next, these are the small moments that build trust, intimacy, and connection, but they require attention. In your health, focus shows up as awareness. You notice what you're eating, how you're moving, how you're feeling. You're more likely to stick with habits, make better decisions, and respond to stress with clarity instead of reactivity. And in your personal growth, focus is your anchor, because growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you give sustained attention to something meaningful, whether that's reading, journaling, reflecting, or practicing a new skill. Without focus, growth is shallow. With focus, it becomes transformational. So why do so many of us struggle with it? Because our environment is engineered for distraction. Because our devices are designed to be addictive, because our schedules are filled with noise, and because, in many ways, we've forgotten what it feels like to be truly present. That's not a reason to give up. It's a reason to begin. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to meditate for hours or throw away your phone. You just need to take the first step toward intentional focus. That might mean turning off notifications. It might mean working in timed blocks. It might mean setting boundaries around your time and attention. More importantly, it means shifting your mindset. It means seeing focus not as a restriction but as a freedom. Because when you focus, you finish. When you focus, you feel progress. You feel clarity. You feel peace. That's the reward. One of the greatest myths in modern productivity is that you need to do more. But the truth is, you probably need to do less, just more deeply. It's not about how many tasks you check off. It's about whether the ones you complete actually move you forward. And that's where focus comes in. It helps you separate the essential from the noise, the important from the urgent, the meaningful from the merely distracting. Let's consider an example. Imagine two people with the same skills, same goals, and same amount of time. One jumps between tasks, responds to every message immediately, and feels constantly behind. The other creates space to work without interruptions, reflects regularly on their priorities, and works on one thing at a time with full attention. Who do you think will make more progress over the next month, the next year, the next 5 years? The answer is obvious. And yet, The temptation to be the first person, the busy, scattered one, is everywhere. That's why developing focus takes more than good intentions. It takes discipline, it takes courage, and it takes a willingness to be different in a world that glorifies distraction. But here's the payoff. When you train yourself to focus, you begin to rise above the noise. You create results that others can't replicate, not because you work harder, but because you work with more clarity and intention. You become a leader not just of projects or teams, but of yourself. And in a world filled with noise, that kind of clarity is magnetic. It sets you apart. It builds trust. It creates momentum. So if you've been feeling overwhelmed, scattered, or stuck, know this. Focus is your leverage. It's your edge. It's your quiet superpower in a loud world. And it's yours to develop, one moment, one choice, one breath at a time. Chapter 2. Understanding the nature of distraction. If you want to overcome distraction, you must begin by understanding what it really is. Most people think distraction is simply about external noise, phones buzzing, emails piling up, people interrupting, notifications flashing. And yes, all of those things contribute. But the truth runs deeper. Distraction is not just what's happening around you, it's also what's happening inside you. Distraction is often a symptom, not the root. It's a response, an escape route your mind takes when it encounters discomfort. That discomfort might come from boredom, stress, fear, insecurity, or even the pressure to perform well. And instead of staying with that feeling or working through it, the mind looks for something easier, something faster, something numbing, something that doesn't demand presence or vulnerability. That's why you can silence all your notifications, close every tab, sit down at a quiet desk, and still find yourself distracted. Because the real distraction often lives inside your own mind. The modern world is quick to blame technology, and in many ways, rightfully so. Our digital environments are engineered to be addictive. Every swipe, like, and ping is a carefully designed reward built to trigger your brain's dopamine system. The more you engage, the more you're conditioned to seek instant gratification, and the more you seek it, the harder it becomes to stay with tasks that don't give you that immediate hit of pleasure. But if we stop at blaming technology, we miss a crucial piece of the puzzle: emotional avoidance. Much of what we call distraction is really avoidance. You avoid the discomfort of starting something difficult. You avoid the anxiety of not knowing how to begin. You avoid the insecurity of facing your own limitations. And so you reach for something that offers relief, however temporary. A YouTube video, a snack, a quick check of your messages, a scroll through social media. Distraction, in this way, becomes a kind of emotional regulation. It's not just about avoiding tasks, it's about avoiding feelings. And that's why it's so powerful and so sneaky. Here's an example. Imagine sitting down to write a report. It's not hard. You know what to say. But 5 minutes in, you feel a twinge of self-doubt. Is this good enough? What if I mess this up? Instead of pushing through that discomfort, you check your inbox. Harmless, right? But that little moment of escape reinforces the habit. Your brain learns, when uncomfortable feelings arise, distraction is the solution. Over time, that becomes a reflex. You don't even notice you're doing it. It becomes automatic. You lose your ability to sit with discomfort, to work through challenge, to be present even when it's not fun. And that's the real cost. So, what's the antidote? Awareness, curiosity, self-honesty. You have to begin by observing your distractions, not just the what, but the why. What are you feeling right before you reach for your phone? What thoughts are running through your mind when you break your focus? What emotional trigger lies beneath the urge to escape? This isn't about judgment. It's not about shaming yourself or trying to become perfectly disciplined. It's about getting to know yourself, about recognizing that distraction is trying to tell you something. Maybe you're tired, maybe you're afraid, maybe you're bored, and your mind is craving novelty. Whatever it is, the power lies in noticing, because once you see it, you can choose a different response. That's where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is the practice of noticing what's happening without needing to change it right away. It's the ability to sit with your discomfort instead of escaping it, to pause instead of react, to observe without judgment. When you develop this awareness, distraction loses its grip. It may still arise, but you no longer follow it blindly. You become the one in charge. Let's be practical here. Imagine you're working, and you feel the urge to check your phone. Instead of immediately reacting, you pause. You take a breath. You ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Maybe you notice you're anxious. Maybe you're bored. Maybe you're doubting your ability to finish the task. Whatever it is, you label it. You sit with it. You don't try to fix it or run from it. You just acknowledge it. In that moment, you've disrupted the pattern. You've reclaimed your power. And the more you practice that day after day, the more resilient your focus becomes. Another truth we have to face is this. Not all distractions are external. Many are internal stories, looping thoughts, mental chatter. You might be working, but in your mind you're replaying a conversation from earlier, worrying about something tomorrow, or drifting into a daydream. This mental noise is normal, but it's not harmless. It pulls your attention away from the present and drains your energy without you realizing it. The solution isn't to force the mind into silence. That rarely works. The solution is to return again and again to the present moment, to build the habit of noticing when you've wandered and gently bringing your attention back. That's the essence of focus. Not staying locked in without ever drifting, but noticing the drift and returning. Like a muscle, your attention grows stronger with every repetition. Another important dimension to distraction is overcommitment. Many people are constantly distracted not because they lack discipline, but because they're simply trying to do too much. They're stretched thin. They've said yes to too many things. Their mind is overloaded because their life is overloaded. In these cases, distraction is a cry for simplicity. Your brain is telling you, I can't keep up. And the path forward isn't another productivity hack. It's a deep look at your priorities. It's the courage to say no. It's the wisdom to recognize that doing fewer things better is far more powerful than doing more things poorly. Distraction thrives in chaos. It thrives when your goals aren't clear, when your schedule is reactive, when your time is unprotected. Focus, on the other hand, thrives in structure, in intention, in clarity. That's why managing distraction starts with managing your environment, your habits, and your mindset. It's not just about removing temptation, it's about building a life that supports presence. And it all begins with self-awareness. Let's be honest, distraction isn't going away. The world will keep spinning, the pings will keep coming, the temptation to escape will always be there. But you're not powerless. You can choose to lead yourself. You can build awareness. You can learn to sit with discomfort. You can train your focus like a muscle, and when you do, everything changes. You stop being reactive. You start being intentional. You begin to live with presence. And in doing so, you start to create work, relationships, and experiences that are real, not rushed. So the next time you feel the urge to check out to distract yourself, pause, take a breath, ask yourself, what am I avoiding? That question alone can shift your entire day. Because when you understand the true nature of distraction, you no longer fear it. You learn from it, you grow through it, and eventually you rise above it. Chapter 3. The Mindfulness Connection Training, the Muscle of Awareness. Focus begins with awareness. You cannot direct your attention if you don't first notice where it's going. This is where mindfulness enters not as a buzzword or trendy concept, but as a foundational practice for building clarity, presence, and sustained attention. If focus is the destination, mindfulness is the road that takes you there. It is the practice of noticing what's happening inside you and around you without judgment, without resistance, and without the compulsion to change it immediately. Most people think of mindfulness as something reserved for meditation. And yes, meditation is a powerful tool to develop mindfulness, but it's only one doorway. True mindfulness isn't something you do for 10 minutes a day. It's a way of living, a way of seeing, a way of engaging with life that says, I am here now, I am paying attention, I am choosing my response, instead of reacting out of habit. To understand the power of mindfulness, imagine this. You're sitting at your desk, working on an important project. Suddenly, your phone buzzes. You pick it up, check the message, then decide to scroll through social media for just a minute. 15 minutes later, you've lost your train of thought. You return to your work, but now your mind feels foggy and unfocused. You try to power through, but your energy has shifted. That's a moment where focus slipped away. Now imagine that same situation. But this time, you've trained yourself in mindfulness. You feel the urge to check your phone, but you notice it. You pause. You observe the sensation, the restlessness, the mental itch. You don't judge it. You simply breathe and bring your attention back to the task at hand. That single breath, that single moment of awareness changes everything. It interrupts the cycle of unconscious behavior. It gives you back your choice. That is the power of mindfulness. It creates space between stimulus and response, space between impulse and action, and in that space, freedom lives. At its core, mindfulness is the training of attention. Just like lifting weights strengthens your body, practicing mindfulness strengthens your mind's ability to stay anchored in the present. Each time you notice your thoughts drifting and gently guide them back, you're doing a mental rep. Over time, those reps add up. Your awareness becomes sharper, your focus becomes steadier, your reactions become calmer. This doesn't mean you'll never get distracted again. It means you'll recover faster. You'll recognize the drift earlier. You'll stop spiraling into unconscious habits and start responding with intention. Let's go deeper. Mindfulness teaches you to observe your thoughts rather than be controlled by them. Most people go through their day lost in thought, reacting to whatever their mind tells them. If a thought arises, I'm behind, this is too hard, I need to check my messages, they believe it without question and act on it without pause. But when you practice mindfulness, you begin to see thoughts as just that, thoughts, not truths, not commands, just mental events passing through your awareness. And with that shift in perspective, your relationship to your mind changes. You're no longer a servant to your thoughts. You become the observer, the witness, the one who decides which thoughts deserve your attention and which ones can be let go. This is especially powerful when dealing with distractions rooted in emotion like fear, self-doubt, or anxiety. Instead of letting those feelings hijack your attention, you can acknowledge them, sit with them, and still choose to stay present. It's important to say this clearly. Mindfulness is not about suppressing thoughts or emptying your mind. It's about learning to relate to your inner experience differently with curiosity, compassion, and clarity. Let's explore how this looks in everyday life. Imagine you're having a conversation with someone. You're trying to listen, but your mind keeps drifting to your to-do list. You catch yourself. Instead of getting frustrated or pretending to listen while your thoughts wander, you gently return. You look the person in the eyes. You take a breath. You bring yourself back into the moment. That is mindfulness in action. That is training the muscle of awareness. Or maybe you're eating lunch while scrolling through your phone. Halfway through, you realize you barely tasted the food. You pause. You put the phone down. You take the next bite slowly. You notice the flavors, the texture. You're no longer just eating. You're experiencing. That moment of presence, however small, reconnects you to your life, and the more you practice it, the more it becomes your default. Now, how do you build this mindfulness in a world that constantly pulls you away? Start small. You don't need an elaborate routine. You just need commitment. Begin with a few minutes a day. Sit quietly. Close your eyes. Notice your breath. Your thoughts will wander. That's not failure. That's training. Each time you notice the wandering and bring your focus back, you're strengthening the muscle. Beyond formal meditation, you can bring mindfulness into simple daily activities: walking, brushing your teeth, washing the dishes, drinking tea. Instead of rushing through the motions, use these moments as anchors. Focus on the physical sensations, the smells, the movements. Let them ground you. These small acts accumulate, and as they do, your capacity for focus expands not just in quiet moments, but in the heart of your most demanding work. There's another benefit of mindfulness that often goes unnoticed. It reduces the noise in your mind. Most people are living with constant mental chatter. Thoughts race, emotions swirl, plans collide with worries. All this internal noise makes it nearly impossible to focus deeply. But mindfulness creates stillness. It doesn't eliminate all thoughts, but it gives you distance from them, and that distance brings peace. Imagine trying to work in a room full of shouting people. That's what an untrained mind feels like. Now imagine those voices quiet down, not disappear, but soften. That's what mindfulness offers. It doesn't mute life, but it turns down the volume so you can hear what matters most. Over time, mindfulness helps you build a kind of inner steadiness, a quiet confidence that says, I can handle this moment. I don't need to escape. I don't need to react. I can simply be here. And that's the essence of presence. In a distracted world, presence is rare. It's magnetic. It's powerful. People feel it when you're truly listening. When you're not waiting to speak, not checking your phone, not elsewhere in your mind, but here, fully here. That's what mindfulness cultivates. Not just better concentration, but deeper connection. Not just better work, but a richer life. And here's the beautiful part. You already have what you need. The ability to be aware is already within you. You're not building something new. You're uncovering what was always there. So don't make this complicated. Just begin. One breath at a time. One moment at a time. And each time your mind wanders, and it will gently guide it back with kindness, with patience, with the understanding that every return strengthens the muscle. In a world that trains you to scatter your attention, mindfulness is your quiet rebellion. It's your way of saying, I choose to be present. I choose to live awake. I choose to lead myself with clarity. And with that choice, everything begins to change. Chapter 4. Building environments that support deep focus. If your mind is the engine of focus, your environment is the fuel or the friction. No matter how motivated or disciplined you are, the space around you plays a silent, powerful role in shaping your ability to concentrate. The truth is, most people are trying to achieve deep focus in shallow environments, spaces that are cluttered, chaotic, and constantly calling their attention elsewhere. It's like trying to meditate at a rock concert or write a novel in the middle of a carnival. Even if your intention is strong, the surroundings work against you. That's why one of the smartest and most practical things you can do to protect your focus is to design your environment to support it. We often think of focus as a purely internal skill, something that depends entirely on willpower. But focus is just as much environmental as it is mental. Your surroundings either align with your intention or they sabotage it. The first step is to become aware of the forces in your environment that consistently steal your attention. Start with the obvious, your phone. This device, for many people, is the single most consistent source of distraction, even when it's on silent, even when it's face down. The mere presence of your phone on your desk has been shown in studies to reduce cognitive capacity. Why? because part of your brain is still checking it, even unconsciously. You're split before you even begin. So what's the solution? Make it invisible. When you need to focus, put your phone in another room, not just in your pocket, out of sight. If that's not possible, at least use Do Not Disturb mode or an app blocker. You're not being rude or unproductive, you're being intentional. You're taking control of your space. Next, look at your visual environment. Is your desk cluttered? Are there stacks of papers, wires, books, reminders, and half-finished projects staring at you? Visual chaos translates to mental chaos. Your brain processes your surroundings, even when you're not consciously thinking about them. Every object in your field of vision has a story, a task, a memory attached to it, and your mind tries to hold all of it at once. That's why minimalism isn't just aesthetic, it's functional. A clear desk creates a clear mind. It tells your brain, this is a place of calm, order, and purpose. This is where we do focused work. You don't need to create a sterile, lifeless space. You just need to remove visual noise and add visual clarity. Choose a few items that inspire you: a plant, a quote, a clean notebook. Keep only what supports your mental clarity and remove what distracts or nags at your subconscious. Lighting also matters. Natural light, if available, has been shown to improve mood, alertness, and even cognitive performance. If you're working in a dark or artificially lit space, you may feel more sluggish or disconnected. Position your workspace near a window if you can, and use warm, calming light sources to reduce eye strain. Sound is another important environmental factor. Some people work well in silence. Others need background noise. But not all noise is created equal. Random chatter, unpredictable music, or household disruptions can break concentration in an instant. If silence isn't possible, try neutral soundscapes, white noise, rain sounds, ambient music without lyrics. These create an acoustic blanket that blocks out distractions without demanding attention. Experiment to find what works best for your brain. Let's also talk about your digital environment. A cluttered computer desktop, a browser with 30 open tabs, constant email pings. These things may seem harmless, but they're digital distractions that drain mental bandwidth. Close, unnecessary tabs. Use full screen mode when writing. Organize your digital workspace just like your physical one. Clean, intentional, and aligned with your task. And then there's the most underestimated environmental factor of all: people. Your focus doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's affected by the people around you. Family, co-workers, roommates, they all have the power to either support or interrupt your attention. If you don't set clear boundaries, you'll always be vulnerable to interruption. This doesn't mean you need to isolate yourself. It means you need to communicate clearly. Let the people around you know when you're doing focused work. Use visual signals: a closed door, headphones on, a sign on your desk. Protecting your focus isn't selfish. It's respectful both to your work and to those who depend on its quality. Now, let's shift to a more subtle but crucial part of your environment: rituals and routines. Your physical space isn't just about objects, it's about energy. And energy is shaped by the habits you associate with that space. If you always scroll social media at your desk, your brain begins to associate that space with passive consumption, not creation. If you eat meals in front of your computer, the boundary between rest and work blurs. If you check emails first thing in the morning, your mind starts each day in reactive mode. That's why changing your environment often means changing how you use it. Create rituals that reinforce intention. Light a candle before writing. Play a specific playlist when entering deep work. Keep your workspace reserved for your most focused efforts. Over time, your brain begins to associate that environment with clarity and discipline. You enter that space and feel yourself shift like a runner stepping onto the track or an artist entering the studio. The space becomes sacred. It becomes a container for your best work. And if your current environment isn't ideal, don't worry. Start where you are. Even if you live in a shared space, you can carve out micro-environments for focus. A specific chair, a certain table, a corner of a room. It's not about perfection, it's about intention. Every small change you make is a signal to your brain. This matters. We are here to focus. Finally, remember this. Environments don't just shape what you do, they shape who you become. If you spend your days in noisy, reactive, cluttered spaces, your mind begins to mirror that. You become reactive, scattered, and drained. But if you consistently create spaces of calm, clarity, and purpose, you become focused, present, disciplined. You become the kind of person who protects what matters. You don't need more willpower. You need fewer distractions. You need a space that supports the person you're becoming. So take the time to redesign your environment not just once, but as an ongoing practice. Evaluate it often. Adjust it as your needs evolve. Ask yourself regularly, is this space helping me show up as my best self or holding me back? Because in the end, focus isn't just about the strength of your mind, it's about the clarity of your environment. And when those two things align, you create a space not just for productivity but for presence, purpose, and deep personal growth. Chapter 5. Daily Habits That Strengthen Focus. Deep focus is not a one-time event. It's a practice, a result of the small choices you make every day. Just like your physical fitness depends on what you do repeatedly, your mental clarity depends on the habits you build into your daily routine. And here's the good news. You don't need more hours in the day to focus better. You simply need to use the hours you already have with more intention. The key lies not in doing more, but in building rhythms and rituals that help you protect and renew your attention. Let's begin with your morning, because how you start your day sets the tone for everything that follows. For many people, the first thing they do upon waking is check their phone. Instantly, their mind is filled with other people's priorities, messages, news, social media, to-do lists. Without realizing it, they've gone from presence to reactivity before even getting out of bed. But what if your mornings began differently? What if you gave yourself even 10 minutes of quiet before the world came rushing in? Creating a mindful morning ritual, even a simple one, can shift your entire relationship with focus. It doesn't need to be elaborate. It could be a few deep breaths, journaling one thought, stretching, sipping tea in silence, or stepping outside for a moment of stillness. What matters is that you start the day with intention, instead of falling straight into distraction. This builds momentum. When you begin your day grounded and present, you're more likely to carry that clarity into your work, your decisions, and your relationships. Once your day begins, the next habit that strengthens focus is time blocking. Our brains don't multitask well. When you switch between tasks, constantly answering emails while working on a report, checking notifications while in a meeting, you dilute your attention and exhaust your mental energy. Focused work requires dedicated time. That's why time blocking is so powerful. It means carving out specific blocks of your day for specific types of work, whether that's writing, deep thinking, planning, or creative problem solving. During those blocks, you protect your focus like it's sacred. You don't check messages. You don't open unrelated tabs. You go deep. These focused blocks don't need to be long. In fact, short sprints of deep work like the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of rest, can be incredibly effective. The goal is not to force yourself into long hours, but to build consistency in single tasking. You might be surprised how much you can accomplish in just 90 minutes of pure focus, more than what many people achieve in an entire distracted afternoon. Now, let's talk about breaks. One of the most underrated habits for sustaining focus is the practice of resting intentionally. Too often, people treat breaks as wasted time or use them to scroll aimlessly, which doesn't actually give the brain rest, it just redirects attention. But when you take breaks on purpose, when you step outside, stretch, breathe, take a short walk, or simply sit in silence, you allow your brain to reset. You lower your stress response. You recharge your attention. This rhythm of focus and release, of tension and relaxation, is the foundation of sustainable productivity. It's not just about going hard, it's about knowing when to pause. Another powerful daily habit is reflection. In a world that rewards constant doing, few people take the time to pause and ask, how did I spend my attention today? Did I focus on what matters, or did I get pulled into noise? Even a 5-minute check-in at the end of your day can help you identify patterns. You might notice that you always lose focus at the same time each afternoon, or that certain tasks consistently pull you into reactive mode. With this awareness, you can adjust. You can refine your schedule, remove distractions, and reinforce the habits that actually help. Journaling can be especially useful here. You don't need to write pages. Just note, what helped me focus today? What distracted me? What will I do differently tomorrow? Over time, this habit builds metacognition, your ability to think about your thinking, and that's one of the most powerful tools in strengthening long-term focus. Let's not forget the role of physical habits either. Your body and brain are not separate. What you eat, how you sleep, how you move, they all impact your attention. Start with sleep. Chronic sleep deprivation reduces your ability to concentrate, regulate emotions, and make decisions. One of the best productivity tools you can adopt is a consistent sleep routine. Not just enough hours, but consistent quality sleep. Then there's nutrition. Blood sugar crashes, dehydration, and poor diet all affect cognitive performance. Try to eat in ways that support steady energy, whole foods, regular meals, hydration. You don't need to be extreme, just intentional. Movement also matters. You don't need an intense workout every day, but regular movement, walking, stretching, light exercise, improves blood flow, boosts mood, and clears mental fog. Even standing up and moving every hour can make a difference in your mental clarity. Now let's explore digital hygiene, which is increasingly essential in today's world. You can build strong internal habits, but if your digital space is chaotic, your attention will suffer. That's why it's important to adopt simple, consistent practices like checking email only at scheduled times instead of constantly refreshing, turning off non-essential notifications, especially from social media or group chats, unsubscribing from information you no longer need. Every newsletter or update you don't read is a mental burden. Using website blockers or focus apps to limit access to distractions during work blocks. These aren't rules to restrict you, they're tools to protect you, tools that help you stay aligned with what you truly value. Finally, one of the most transformative habits you can build is the practice of starting again without guilt. No matter how disciplined you are, there will be days when you get distracted. You'll forget your morning ritual. You'll waste time online. You'll fall back into reactive patterns. That's okay. The key is to return to your breath, your intention, your structure without self-judgment. Progress is not a straight line. It's a practice of remembering and recommitting. Each time you bring yourself back to focus, you're strengthening the muscle. Each time you start again, you're rebuilding trust in yourself. That's what makes a person truly powerful, not perfection, but persistence. So, begin where you are. Start with one habit, one morning ritual, one block of focused time, one intentional break. Then build from there, layer by layer, day by day. Because in the end, focus is not something you find. It's something you build through your choices, your systems, and your daily practices. Your future self is shaped by what you pay attention to today. So give your attention the respect it deserves. Protect it, train it, nurture it. And in doing so, you'll not only get more done, you'll become more present, more grounded, and more connected to the life you're actually living. Chapter 6. Navigating Setbacks Without Losing Presence. No matter how disciplined, mindful, or structured you are, setbacks are inevitable. Distraction will creep in, habits will break, plans will fall apart. That's not a flaw in your character, that's a feature of life. The real question isn't whether you'll get off track, it's how you respond when you do. This is where most people give up. They assume that slipping means starting over, that breaking focus once means they've failed completely, that if they can't be perfect, it's not worth continuing. But here's the truth. The ability to refocus is more powerful than the ability to never lose focus. Setbacks are not the end of progress. They're part of it. The strength lies in the return. In the world of mindfulness, there's a well-known phrase, begin again. It's simple, gentle, and profoundly liberating. Whether you've been distracted for a minute, an hour, or a week, you can begin again. Right now, no drama, no guilt, just presence. Let's break this down. 1. The myth of perfect discipline. One of the greatest enemies of long-term focus is perfectionism. Many people believe that to be truly disciplined, they must never miss a day, never lose concentration, never fall into distraction. But this mindset is both unrealistic and self-defeating. Real life is messy. You'll get sick. You'll have family emergencies. You'll experience burnout, self-doubt, and exhaustion. If your system only works when everything is perfect, then it's a fragile system, and fragile systems break easily. Resilient systems are different. They expect imperfection. They're built on the assumption that life will sometimes pull you away. And because of that, they include tools for recovery, ways to reconnect, to reflect, to return. Focus isn't about staying on track at all costs. It's about building the inner strength to get back on track again and again, without shame, without panic, without giving up. This is where self-compassion becomes a powerful ally, not as a way to excuse laziness or avoid accountability, but as a tool for long-term consistency. When you meet your moments of setback with understanding instead of criticism, you create an environment where growth can continue. Beating yourself up for getting distracted doesn't help you refocus. It just adds another layer of noise. But noticing, breathing, and gently choosing to return, that's the practice. That's the power. 2. Noticing the patterns behind the setbacks. Every setback holds a message. Maybe you lost focus because you were overwhelmed. Maybe you skipped your morning routine because you went to bed too late. Maybe your quick break turned into a 2-hour binge because you were emotionally drained. If you don't pause to examine these moments, they repeat. But if you lean in with curiosity, you can learn from them and make changes that prevent future spirals. Ask yourself, what triggered this distraction? What was I feeling right before it happened? What was I avoiding or resisting? Was I tired, hungry, anxious, or overcommitted? This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about gathering data. Think of it like a scientist studying your own behavior. The more you understand your patterns, the better you can design your systems. Maybe you realize that you always lose focus in the afternoon. That's a clue. Maybe you need a movement break, a snack, or a shift in environment. Maybe you notice that emotional stress causes you to seek distractions. That's another clue you might need to build in moments of rest or reflection before diving into deep work. Self-awareness is your recovery tool. It allows you to reconnect with presence not by forcing yourself back, but by understanding why you left in the first place. 3. Returning to presence through anchors. When you feel off track, it can be hard to find your footing. That's why it's helpful to build anchors, simple, repeatable actions that bring you back to the present moment. An anchor might be a deep breath with your eyes closed, writing one sentence in a journal, closing all your browser tabs and starting fresh, touching your feet to the floor and grounding yourself in silence, repeating a phrase like, This moment is a new beginning. These small rituals are like lifelines. They remind your body and brain, we're still here and we're still in control. Over time, these micro-returns build confidence. You learn that no matter how far your focus strays, you always have the power to come back. And the more often you practice this, the shorter your recovery time becomes. Instead of staying distracted for hours or days, you catch it sooner. You interrupt the spiral. You reclaim your intention. 4. Managing the emotional weight of setbacks. Setbacks often trigger shame. You feel like you should have known better. You question your ability to change. You wonder if you're just not disciplined enough. But shame is not a productive teacher. It shrinks your sense of possibility. It makes you retreat instead of re-engage. That's why emotional regulation is essential in focus work. When you hit a low point, when you break a streak, when your plans fall apart, pause. Take a breath. Speak to yourself as you would to a close friend. This is hard, but I'm still learning. I got off track, but I can start again. This moment doesn't define me, my response to it does. Compassion creates clarity, and clarity leads you back to focus. Remember, even high performers lose focus. Even meditation masters get distracted. The difference is not in how often they drift, it's in how gracefully they return. 5. Using structure as a safety net. Structure doesn't just help you focus, it helps you recover. When you're off track, you don't want to make dozens of decisions. You want a clear next step. That's why having predefined systems, routines, schedules, habits acts as a support network when your mind feels scattered. If your day starts to unravel, you can say, okay, I'll go back to my time block, or let me just open my reset checklist, or all I have to do is 5 minutes of mindful breathing and one small task. You don't need to feel fully motivated. You don't need to wait for inspiration. You just follow the structure you've already created. And once you get moving, momentum builds, presence returns, focus follows. 6. Knowing when to push and when to pause. Sometimes, the best way to recover focus is not to push through, but to pause intentionally. If you're depleted, burned out, or emotionally drained, forcing yourself to concentrate may only lead to frustration. In these moments, mindfulness doesn't mean powering through. It means checking in. It means asking, what do I actually need right now? Maybe it's rest, maybe it's connection, maybe it's stillness. Rest is not laziness. Strategic rest is part of high performance. It replenishes your focus reserve so you can return with full presence. Knowing when to pause is as important as knowing when to push. Learning to distinguish between temporary resistance, which you can move through, and genuine exhaustion, which needs care, is a mark of wisdom. You don't want to abandon your commitments every time things get hard, but you also don't want to burn yourself out pretending that willpower is limitless. Mindfulness helps you sense the difference. 7. Redefining what it means to stay on track. Staying on track doesn't mean avoiding every detour. It means having the tools, mindset, and commitment to return again and again. Focus isn't about having perfect streaks. It's about showing up after the streak is broken. Mindfulness isn't about being calm all the time. It's about noticing when you're not and choosing to reconnect. Presence isn't about never drifting. It's about always being able to find your way back. So give yourself permission to be imperfect, to be human, to falter without collapsing, to wander without getting lost. This isn't weakness, it's resilience. It's mental flexibility. It's how you build discipline that lasts. And most importantly, it's how you build a relationship with yourself that's based on trust, not fear. You begin to believe, even if I fall, I know how to rise. And that belief changes everything. In a world that constantly pulls your attention away, Learning to refocus is a superpower. Not once, not perfectly, but again and again. Setbacks are not a failure of your focus. They are training for it. Every return to presence is a victory. Every pause before reaction is progress. Every moment you choose awareness over autopilot is a step toward becoming the most grounded, powerful version of yourself. So the next time you get distracted, don't panic, don't punish yourself, don't spiral into self-doubt. Just breathe, notice, and begin again, because your ability to recover is not only what defines your focus, it's what defines your growth. In a world where your attention is constantly being pulled, fragmented, and monetized, the most radical act you can commit is to be here, now, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. To reclaim your focus is to reclaim your freedom. Because when you choose where your attention goes, you take back control of your time, your choices, and ultimately, your life. You are no longer just reacting to the world, you are consciously creating your experience within it. Through this journey, you've explored more than just techniques or strategies. You've rediscovered the power of awareness. You've learned that distraction isn't just about devices, it's about disconnection. That mindfulness isn't about perfection, it's about returning. That focus isn't about grinding harder, it's about aligning deeply. This isn't easy. It requires courage. In a culture that glorifies constant stimulation and celebrates busyness as status, choosing presence feels almost rebellious. But it's a rebellion worth leading because it brings you back to what truly matters. When you live with presence, everything deepens. Your conversations become more meaningful, your work becomes more creative, your rest becomes more restorative. You stop living in the shadow of what's next and begin inhabiting the richness of what is. You've also learned that building focus is not about being perfect every day. It's about making small, intentional choices again and again. To put your phone away, to take a breath before reacting, to sit with discomfort instead of numbing it, to notice your mind drifting and gently bring it back. Every time you do this, you're training something far more important than discipline. You're cultivating self-leadership, and that leadership ripples outward. When you are more present, others feel it. Your clarity inspires clarity in them. Your steadiness becomes their permission to slow down. In a world that is constantly speeding up, you become a point of stillness. So carry this with you, not as a set of rigid rules, but as a living practice. You will still be distracted sometimes. You will still fall off track. But you now have the tools to return gracefully, consistently, powerfully. Presence is not a destination. It's a decision you make in every moment. And every time you choose it, you remember, you are not lost. You are here, right where life is happening, right where growth begins, right where you belong.